eventually it would have been successful. Obviously, apart from the mouse slip, though, that was an excellent game from my 1800 rated opponent. Okay. This is another classic mistake that I make in these Banter Blitz sessions, is that I try to accept a username that I find somewhat amusing, and this is Gustafsson Gambit 1300 from Bulgaria. But what happens is that I usually make this mistake, that I see a username that I find amusing, and then it turns out that I played them before. And usually I try to mostly play people that I haven't played before in order to give as many a chance as possible to play in these. But there you go. It happens from time to time, and at least my opponent gets the chance for a revenge, because I could see that I'd won the previous game, surprisingly enough. Not too much to say about the opening. He's chosen a somewhat rare line here with the queen takes d4 instead of knight takes d4, which is reasonable, I think. You're not gonna get an advantage as white, but I don't think you're gonna be worse either. Just gonna have a pretty normal game. I think bishop d2 was a little bit careless though, since I do get knight g4 attacking the queen. This is why in these lines you very often go h3 as soon as possible, just to cover the square on g5. So on g4, so you never have to worry about that particular jump. And funnily, after knight g4, queen d3, knight b4 would have actually trapped his queen in the middle of the board. But after queen g5, which is the best move, he does have the square on h4. So he's as well as f4. So he's pretty safe. But now I do get a double attack on f2 and also b2, which hopefully will pay some sort of dividends. Queen b2, rook b1. Then if queen c2, rook c1, my queen is, I think, quite certainly just trapped. I don't think there are any tricks there. But I can go queen a3 after rook b1. Then there's rook b7, bishop c3, rook d7, knight f6. Well, I do have bishop h6 though. Okay, I'll go for that. Looks a lot better, actually. He does have the option of going knight d5 now. And if bishop g5, knight b6, bishop d2, there's knight d7. I think he comes out on top there. Yeah. After queen d5, I should probably try and win another tempo with knight f6. Truth be told, after queen b6, this whole operation didn't I think achieve much, most probably. So yeah. Queen d3. Now I spoke about earlier that knight b4 traps the queen after queen d3. Now it doesn't trap the queen, but it does leave him in a world of trouble. Queen d4 is the only decent square for the queen. and then queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and the bishop on d2 will hang, leaving me with an extra bishop. And knight a4 is ingenious. Probably the best try there was bishop e3 in order not to lose immediately. Even there, after knight d3, bishop b6, knight takes b2, I would have at least won a couple of pawns. Some strange lines there going like bishop a5, b6, bishop b4, a5, bishop a3, rook takes c3, bishop takes b2, rook takes c2, then bishop takes f6. So he may not have lost a piece there, but I think he was still losing a couple of pawns. Here, however, he does save his queen, but yeah, full piece is lost. So queen a3, it's just important that I trade on d2 first. Now with queen a4, I just move the bishop back, and I'm a clear knight up. Here, after knight c2, there are a number of options. Sorry, knight d2, knight c2, queen a4, rook. Sorry, knight a1, rook a1, queen b2, rook d1. Doesn't seem to win on the spot, so I'll just grab the pawn with the bishop instead. Knight c4, I think, can be met very easily with queen c5. Everything's well protected. And yeah, from here on, it should be fairly simple. Grabbing another pawn, but I wouldn't say queen c3 was a mistake, because that pawn could not be protected anyway. Let's just go d5 now, winning yet another pawn. He has to move the knight. I will trade queens and then grab another pawn. Actually, as a matter of fact, after knight e5, I might have gone queen d6, then queen g3, rook c2, winning a pawn that way. a3, I think I'm gonna go knight c2. Again, attacking the rook, a1, as well as still threatening the knight on c4. Yeah, c4, this doesn't really help. I just move the queen. Rook c1 is probably best, but then yeah, here I just take the rook. No need to make it any more difficult than it is. Knight e4 is also coming here, and that's going to be a rook and 3 pawns up. And this is we're getting into now you resign kind of territory. The clock situation also not helping. Queen b6, setting up a possible smothered mate. And here, after is there any immediate win here? I don't know. We'll just go queen f6, attacking the rook on a1. Yeah, queen c4. This move loses so many pieces, it's hard to even count them. But there was nothing there for him anyway, so again, doesn't make a whole lot of difference. We'll give a check. And he's gonna lose on time. Okay. Yeah, just gonna have a sip of water and a bite to eat. I made an omelet. The taste is very good, even though I burnt it horribly. Mm. Okay. I don't think I played this person before. No, I have not. Tiger Diger. 2,500 from Turkey. Is he going to play f3 and then h4? Wow. Wow. Okay. 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 That's challenge accepted. If I ever had the motivation to just like usually in these events, I just want to play a good game and hopefully try and be instructive as well. But after this opening, my motivation is just to crush this guy mercilessly. And that's why I'm playing really aggressively. Just the nerve. He does have courage, though. What did I do? What did I do? Now I have to exchange queens, because if also bishop d4, c3, I would have had to exchange queens there as well. So now it's just going to be some bullshit prosaic win. Who wants that? Nobody's here to see that. When you play the, I don't know, accelerated bunk cloud or whatever you want to call it, you want to see blood, not this. It's a spectacular failure on my part. I even gave him some, I don't know, some kind of compensation here in the form of bishop pair. Obviously, it's not even close to being enough, but nevertheless, this was disappointing. Bishop h6. Wow, that is a sick move. Okay, so he took. I thought his idea was to go bishop e2 there. Now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, rook h1. That's nice, but it doesn't matter. I do lose one of my 2 extra pawns, but I will end up with 2 protected passers and an easy win. Didn't want to go g5 yet, not to allow rook to h7. Now he does have rook h7, h8, and rook b8. Okay, didn't see that. What an annoying dude. Just killed my spirit right there and there. Right there and then. Okay, I just need to be sure to make sure that I'm at least sort of fast. Yeah, now I'm winning. Okay, as rook a8, not to lose another pawn, but I'm at least I'm winning the game very easily. He may as well resign here. Like, you went f3. h4, king f2, and actually made some sort of game of it. Your job isn't done here now, mister. Don't waste any more time from people who also wanna get the chance to play. You got your meme. And he resigns. Probably listening in. That was at least respectful. I gotta give him props though. He played well after the meme-ish opening. Okay. Let's go for a 5-minute game. The Jubel 2200 blitz from Germany. Got ourselves a Sicilian of the classical sort. Wow, I thought it was gonna go for the knight of. Okay. You want a dragon, sir? You can have your dragon. I'm not afraid. I am a little bit afraid, but not that afraid. A6? Usually when people play kind of Dragadorf style, dragon and knight of hybrid, they don't castle that early because this A6, B5, you know, bishop B7, knight D7, and so on. All that that whole setup is a little bit slow. And when you castle kingside, usually you're gonna get slaughtered pretty quickly with G4, H4, and bishop H6, and so on. And this is not even about the opponent that you're playing. Like, the thing that makes the dragon sort of a difficult opening for black to play is that everybody knows, or at least everybody who's played e4 at some point in their life, everybody just knows how to attack. You just push on the king side, and this makes the dragon a very difficult opening to play as black, but a more difficult, but an easier opening to play as white. And you can see here, he's never got going on the queen side, and already he's getting mated, I think, pretty shortly, and unless he finds some brilliant defense. So it's really not an opening that you want to play by hand, because people know what to do as white, and most of the time you're just gonna get slaughtered, basically. Okay. Yeah, sorry dude, that was just a bad opening choice. I'm sure my opponent is usually a lot better than this, but you gotta I think you just can't play this way when you play the dragon. Okay, so my opponent is Jonas D from Germany, 2400. We're gonna get a 3-minute game, and I'm continuing with the A6 lines here. Can my opponents either, I don't know if they're not watching the stream, but they're not getting the memo that you gotta play CD5 in these lines, otherwise this stuff is gonna come, and you're usually gonna be in some trouble. Now, this is in one way better than what my opponent had in that other game, because the bishop is well developed on g5 in front of the pawn on e3. But the disadvantage to that is that now I have this other opportunity, which I'm going to go for. I'm not actually sure if it's any good. But basically here I was just going to sack and exchange after ab5, cb5, knight b5, ab5, rook a8, bishop b4 check, followed by bishop b7. And he would either have to go king e2 or block the check with knight d2. Both of them would make his development very difficult. He just chooses to play for compensation instead. Unfortunately, I don't think there is a lot of compensation. Usually in these positions, black just gets to develop and then consolidate the extra pawn. Yeah, e4. I think h6 is useful to insert. When I do castle later on, it's nice not to have to worry about a knight e4 and then knight g5 coming. So just inserting h6 is very useful. You probably should go e5 here at some point in order to get some attack. You know what? I think now that he's waited so long to go e5, oh, this is no good. But also after knight b1, c5, I think I was doing great there. Attacking e4 and sort of breaking up his center. May have had to give back the pawn, but I think I would have had the better position regardless. Now, obviously, I just win a piece, or yeah, a clearing knight, and there isn't a lot of compensation. 95 is an excellent move, though. I think. You know what? Let's just complicate the game a little bit by going c5. I'm hoping for some attacks against his rook on a2 via bishop d5. After, for instance, knight d7, I could have inserted bishop d5 before I take on d7. So I think I was doing well there. Or obviously I'm doing well. I'm a piece up, but I think I might have been winning even more material. Yeah, let's just grab the rook while you can. As the saying goes. Knight c6, that's a good move. Clearly the best chance. Let's yeah, let's attack his rook. Rook d3, there's bishop c4 with a little skewer. I think it's called a skewer. Okay, we'll take on d1 and take on h6. This is, unfortunately for him, mere desperation. Also f5 was good there, but I feel like knight f6 is sort of cleaner, not weakening the king unnecessarily. And there we go. Okay. Let's go for another 5-minute game here. So this is Mac Dillon, 1200 from Brazil. Shows up, fortunately. Are we going to get a King's Indian here? Potentially a Grunfeld? both both openings that have been favored by several world champions, or two of the most famous ones anyway, Bobby Fischer and Garry Kasparov. But one thing they never did is that they played e5 before castles, because usually you would have knight e4 here as a little tactic, winning the pawn back because of knight e4 and bishop e5. But in this case, f7 was hanging, and this meant that my Brazilian opponent has just lost a pawn for actually a very nice central pawn for very little compensation. So f4, fortifying the knight. Next, I want to go bishop e3 and possibly long castles. c6 is a move that very strong players would usually play out automatically here, by the way, just to take away the d5 square for my knight. Question is, do I want to go knight d5 check? Think then bishop d5, ed5, might have c6 then. Probably don't want to, so I'm just gonna develop instead. Now that he prevented long castles, I'm just going king f2. No reason to castle. The king is very, very safe here. c6 he does. Very good move. Again, taking control over the d5 square. This is the advantage that black often has in the King's Indian, is that you can take control of the d5 square while the white pawn is already on c4 and the other one on e4. So you cannot actually control the d4 square as white, which means that in a lot of the positions where black goes e5 and you go d5, d5, and the pawn on e5 is not hanging, then the d4 square will potentially be weak for white, while the d5 square can be covered with a pawn from c6 as black. So that is one of the advantages of that opening. So I have a little tactic here. Knight with rook d8, check. King e7 was obviously the natural response there. It looks as though my rook will be driven back, but would have had rook takes b8, and then knight c6 check, takes b8 with a win of a piece. Now, however, after knight c6, this is more prosaic. I just win at least an exchange after knight c6 and rook a8. Obviously leaving me with a completely winning position. Next, I probably want to go c5 to open up even more and create at least one pass pawn on the queen side. Taking in c3 doesn't probably the best move, but it doesn't help that much in that regard, since c5 is still happening, and I'm still getting that pass pawn. I could have taken an a7 there as well, but c5 I think maybe even better, seeing as now after bc5 I do win the knight in e8 as well, and my opponent very respectfully resigned, which I appreciate. When you're relatively low rated, I don't at all mind if you play on either, but obviously resigning so that we can get to play even more people is also not something I mind. Okay, I'm trying to find an opponent here. So we have Asdas from Turkey. As I mentioned at the start of the show, I'm the warm-up act today. Levon Aronian doing blindfold banter blitz at 6 o'clock Central European. So I will be finishing up after a couple more games. Okay, we've got ourselves so far a 3 nights game that may lead to, well, for instance, the 4 nights game, or we could have had I think it's called, at least in Norwegian, it's called the Prussian attack with knight to g5, and or the Italian possibly with d3, and then bishop c5. I know there's I think there's something called the fried liver attack. I think that name is so stupid. I don't recognize it, and I'm using the Norwegian Prussian instead. It's well known, by the way, that in the 4 knights you shouldn't really go bishop c4, since knight e4 equalizes, or at least equalizes on the spot, and the way that he's played it, he's probably worse already with having lost the bishop pair, and also I have a very nice looking position on the king side here with the pawns on f5 and e5, potentially giving me attacking chances later on. Next, I will develop with bishop d7, rook to e8, possibly even b6, bishop b7, putting the bishop on the long diagonal. Knight b5 is a very good move, probably the best one that he had. But even though I lose the bishop pair here, I'm not that worried, since I will have a very strong center after taking back with a pawn, and I do feel like my attacking chances will remain. b3 is also very reasonable here, developing the bishop either to b3 or possibly a3 after exchanging on d6. I think I will just play it very simply here, forcing him to take, after which I will strengthen my center, and I will never have to worry about that pawn on e5. Now I think the time has come to play f4 as well, opening up a pretty significant, I think, threat of bishop to h3, and in general just gaining more space on the king side. King f1 is a very reasonable move. I think it would have been a better move though, were it not for the fact that he's played c4, which is a good move positionally, but tactically here, this means that d3 will be hanging with check, which is a huge issue for my opponent. Normally after bishop f5 would have had knight h4 attacking both the queen and the bishop, rendering bishop f5 pretty harmless. Now, however, knight h4 would not have been possible because I have the in-between check on d3, followed by queen h7, retaining the protection of the bishop on d3. And after d4, I will have a very nasty in-between check on d3, after which I will go e4, attacking the knight. And this is a huge positional achievement for me to get the pawn to e4, since this will mean that I have massive attacking chances later on with f4 and sorry, with f3 or e3 breaks. Mentioned earlier on that the pawn tandem on f5 and e5 was very good for me, seeing as it will give me attacking chances, and now it's sort of coming to fruition already. f3 now, g3 is the only way not to get mated, and then e3. I think I'm just breaking through with brute force. Should be mentioned that okay, and this is another typical sort of mental error that we make. Okay, I wasn't sorry, dude. I wasn't sitting there just torturing you before I checkmate you, but it's you sort of automatically in your mind when you grab a piece like a rook, you expect a recapture immediately, but then sometimes you don't have to recapture, and often when you capture a rook, it's with check. But then in this case, yeah, I would have had the mate. Okay. Yeah. Very reasonable game from my opponent. The mistakes that he made, like king f1, are that, for instance, is not a bad move at all in general. It's just that it happened not to work tactically. And I think after making some kind of opening error there with bishop c4, I think he actually played very well for a number of moves. Okay. I think we got time for one more game. Let's try and make it a good one. So we have Puya 2007 from Iran, 1900, and we're gonna get one last 5-minute game before the show is over. We got ourselves another Sicilian. Let's see what line he's gonna choose this time. The Najdorf. Okay, we'll go for one of the most critical lines here with I don't know actually what it's called. The bishop g5. Maybe it doesn't even have a name. But anyway, it's pretty illustrative the way you're pushing forward with bishop g5, f4, queen f3, long castle, that this is not a line where you mess around at all. This is a line where you go for the throat. Actually, I think e5 may have been. I have some sort of recollection that e5 may be a little bit premature there, because you may take on d4 and then d5 and then knight d5 maybe. I'm not too sure. But after you take on e5 immediately, I sort of get everything that I want. Yes, he does get a half open d file that potentially can be used for an attack, but his bishop on d5 is really kind of dead at the moment, and I do get very quick play here with knight coming to e4 and also c4, and I could have won a piece there with a3, since the knight has no retreating square, but I was trying to be cute with it, and in the process I missed a pretty important detail, which is that after gf ef6 he does have queen c5, which ensures that he can actually fight on pretty well, seeing as queen g3 can be met by queen g5, exchanging queens, and there's no mate. So this means that yeah, you should usually keep it simple in these situations. Just go a3 and win the knight on d5, and and in the process the game. Now I could take on d7, but then he gets to take on a2 at the very least to bring his knight back to b4. So now I am going to challenge his knight. A couple of moves too late, but what can you do? He does have queen g5 and queen g6, king a1, knight c2, king a2. I think I'm still doing well there, but at least it's very complicated and sort of fitting for last game of the day. Now, however, saving the bishop was not the correct idea, since that bishop is really, really poor, being hemmed in by his own pawns. He does find the only way to save his queen, though, here, to his credit. I don't think I can actually trap the queen. Like queen f4, there's e5. If queen h5, there would have been g4, so that's a trap. But e5, and then don't have a good square for the queen, and he can go queen g4 later on. So I don't think I'm trapping the queen. So I'll just grab the free bishop. Okay. Anyway, I'm bringing the rook into the game. Yeah, I guess I missed rook d5 there. Would have won on the spot. What can I say? You can't see everything. Not even close. f4 now, there's queen e4. So he has to go rook g8, but obviously I'm winning a in a number of ways. I think rook g6, it's not the only move, but it's quite instructive in the way that I'm just removing my pawns so that his king has no protection whatsoever. Now rook h1, and he's in huge trouble. The normal way to protect the pawn on h6 would have been king g7, then I had rook g1, winning the queen. Now after h5, rook g7 is forced because queen g7, rook h5 is mate, or king h7, bishop f5 wins the queen. But here, obviously, he's still in a world of trouble. For instance, queen g5, queen e8, followed by queen h5. Sorry, rook h5 wins the queen, and that's going to be the end of the game. And it's going to also be the end of this session. Thanks everybody for playing. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the blindfold banter blitz that's coming up as the lead act. I feel like I've built that up so much now that I really put a big I put great expectations now into Levon's hands, so don't let him down, big guy. Okay, bye.